tell us about your interactions with Emmanuel Macron, the man.
Well, I've sort of met him close up a couple of times when I was deputising for Theresa May, when she couldn't go to some summit in Paris, and obviously I've come across him many other times, slightly at one remove, in working at the Foreign Office when he was a senior official in the Hollande Élysée, and then obviously after he became president. But the one really striking event that I recall was the last thing that I did abroad as a minister. And it was one of those odd things. Theresa May had been due to attend the 14 Juillet big parade in the centre of Paris and be on the platform with Macron and Merkel and others. And then England, if you recall, suddenly got into the Cricket World Cup final. And Theresa is a great cricket fan and felt also it was her public duty to be supporting the England 11 on that occasion. And so I got the summons, can you go to Paris on Sunday and sit on the platform next to Jean-Claude Juncker and then lunch at the Élysée on the terrace, and afterwards, little table, Macron, Merkel, Juncker, Charles Michel, Stoltenberg, the NATO Secretary General, Mark Rutte, a few others, and me representing the UK. And what I remember about that event was the liveliness of Macron's mind. I mean, this was a man who was coming up with ideas. We were talking about European security, future of our security and defence on the continent. And he was trying to work out how do we make sure the UK is involved if you want, as you're leaving the EU, and should we have a separate European Security Council that's the UK and the EU together? Should we have some other structures there? And he's somebody who has a very restless mind, incredibly bright, intelligent, intellectually curious the whole time. And I think whether you agree with him or disagree with him, it's fascinating to be in his company, and he's somebody, it seems to me, who never stops thinking. I mean, he's come up with other ideas, a European intervention initiative, which we actually are still signed up to outside the EU. He's talked about a Europe of circles in the future, the idea that you'd have a Eurozone core very closely integrated, and then circles with different layers of sort of cooperation as you move further out. And he's the one European leader, it seems to me, who's been asking the question, where after Brexit does the UK fit into a relationship of cooperation between the European democracies, which is the current crisis with Russia and Ukraine, I think really has brought home to us, is something we all need to be thinking about.
How did he take the fact that he organised this grand gathering? All other national leaders were there, and you were the only number two to coin a phrase.
He was very good about it. I mean, if he was at all put out, he didn't show it, and he was a very, very gracious host. And I because I've been Europe Minister for 6 years, I mean, my sort of track record was pretty well known around European capitals amongst European leaders. But he accepted it was like if he, as President of France, had to choose between an international summit and supporting Les Bleus, in the on the football field or the rugby field. I think most French presidents would have made sure that they were there, being seen to cheer on their team. So he got that, and he said to me on the way out, we were breaking up. So he said, "Do you have the score yet?" So he wasn't fazed at all, as far as I could see.
And tell me about his politics. Having seen him up close and all these ideas, these sort of fires out, it seemed that he rose to the French presidency on a sort of centrist, ultimate centrist position. Certainly lots of centrists in Britain got very excited about his, coming from nowhere almost to win the presidency. How do you think that's panned out since he's been in power?
I think mixed results. I think that on the plus side, you look at things and you say, well, he's got higher poll ratings now than almost any previous French president at this stage, approaching the battle for a second term. So he's odds-on favourite to win re-election. Not certain, but certainly the favourite. Whereas François Hollande, in a comparable period, bowed out because his poll ratings were so dire that it was clear that he was going to struggle to get re-elected or even get nominated by his party. And Sarkozy, at the end of his presidency, was similarly clearly facing a tight battle with Hollande as his main rival. But I think, on the other hand, you could look at Macron, you could say, well, he hasn't transformed the French economy, and he hasn't sort of really dealt successfully with the divisions within French society that we saw in the Gilets jaunes protest in Paris and other cities, and we see still in the vote that extreme right candidates like Marine Le Pen are able to win. But I think you can say that he's managed to remain the dominant figure at the moment in French politics. The Socialist Party that dominated the French left is flat on its back. It's in low single figures in the polls. And Macron has sort of managed to corral the centre-left vote, while at the same time winning a big slice of what you might term the sort of moderate conservative centre-right vote. People who were ministers under previous centre-right presidents have worked for Macron, are actively backing Macron. So he's a bit almost like Tony Blair, I think, in that ability to appeal to centre-left and centre-right simultaneously. The other big plus, I think, is you look at his influence on how the EU has developed. And of course, the fact that Angela Merkel has now left the stage leaves Macron as really the dominant figure in EU politics. But if you look at the setup in the European Commission, you have Ursula von der Leyen, a German Christian Democrat, but a very Francophile German Christian Democrat as Commission President. Charles Michel, former Belgian Prime Minister, long-standing ally of France, thinks very like Macron, as President of the European Council. The French Commissioner, Thierry Breton, has single market responsibilities. Now, when the UK was in the EU, we would have fought tooth and nail to try and stop the French Commissioner ever getting their hands on the single market bridge, because we could see that being played to the French benefit. So he's done that. And if you look at the Eurozone, we've not had the sort of big sort of Hamiltonian moment of moving towards a sort of federal banking and monetary system. But we have had a shift in that direction with the COVID recovery funds. And the Germans did concede a move in the direction that Macron wanted, and Macron managed to get together the Italian and the French leaders and form quite a powerful bloc within the EU to argue for those steps. So, I mean, like any democratic leader, mixed track record, but he's got a reasonably good sort of ground on which to campaign. Given the realities of French politics, that doesn't mean I agree with him on everything, but no doubt that he's the front runner at the moment.
And just finally, relations with British politicians. I know he was quite close to George Osborne. I remember being when Emmanuel Macron came to the UK, went to Sandhurst with Theresa May. Boris Johnson tried to persuade him of the merits of building a bridge between Britain and France. And it was ridiculous we didn't have a bridge, a single that we didn't have a bridge between France and England. And Macron apparently told him, "I agree, let's do it." I mean, so far that doesn't seem to have happened. And if anything, the pair of them seem to have spent the past few years burning bridges rather than building them.
Yeah. I think relations started off with efforts being made to have a good relationship, and then I think as sort of the UK's approach to Brexit became more hardline, and the UK was taking unilateral action despite what Boris Johnson had signed up to, Macron took that really badly. But I think just in the last few weeks, there's some signs that because of the Ukraine crisis, that they have been speaking to each other in more friendly terms. I mean, France has always accepted that you can't talk about a serious European system to cooperate on defence and security policy unless both France and the UK are involved. We're the two countries that have serious intelligence, military forces, serious soft power, and a global outlook and global networks, and the willingness, political will, unlike Germany, for the obvious reasons, the will to deploy our military overseas. And so France and Germany have to work together, but France has always, with Brexit in mind, wanted to be the portal through which the UK has to get access to the rest of the EU. And France always rather likes to keep the whole sort of economic cooperation off to one side. We're going to have European EU strategic autonomy on this, thank you. UK, yeah, we want to work with you on defence and security. But I think, no doubt in my mind, that the Ukraine crisis has forced Johnson and Macron closer together. There is a commonality of interest, although there are differences. I mean, Johnson, following the line of previous prime ministers, cleaves closely to Biden and the United States position, more hawkish on Russia. Macron has inherited a Gaullist approach, is more sceptical about the United States, wants to have Europe, a Europe led by France, playing a central and autonomous role in global geopolitics. So some of the conversation between UK and France is going to need to be about, where is the common ground between those two different views, and also what happens in the US will affect that. If we get a Trump further term in 2024, and you get a Republican president who is as hostile to NATO as Trump threatened to be in his first term, didn't quite carry it through, then we're all going to have to think very seriously about our security again. But so I think Macron's a man we can certainly work with together, and what I've heard from him directly tells me he knows that the UK and cooperation with the UK is central to an effective European defence and European security policy.
Maybe if we do get another Trump presidency and another Macron presidency, they can repeat their who's got the toughest handshake usually that they met.
Handshake, yeah. Well, perhaps it'll be the full arm wrestle next time.
David Lidington, thanks so much for joining us on Times Radio.